I just want to record a short message just to, number one, let you all know how much I love and care for you all. Thank you for all the prayers. I know my last podcast episode was a little difficult as it was my son's birthday, and it was just very difficult for me. But let me throw a little bit of love back to you now that you've poured into my life. Let me pour back into you. One of the most important things that you can do is get some time away. Since that episode, I basically just left and went away for several days. I just drove and found a hotel somewhere. And I don't think I turned the television on, not one time. Definitely didn't turn on any radio or anything. And I literally, for days, sat in a hotel room and listened to God and prayed and meditated and got into my word and evaluated my life. And I cannot begin to tell you the amount of peace that has come over me, the amount of clarity that's come into my life, the way that God has spoken to me and some of the divine things that he did that I really believe from this day forth is changing my life. And I'm saying this to you because I want you to have that same experience. I'll make this as brief as I possibly can. But there are a couple things that I did, and I highly recommend that you do this if you get some time away. When I got away, absolutely I was soaking in the scriptures, read a lot of 1st and 2nd Chronicles, reading about the kings, those that rose, those that failed, those that listened to the word of the Lord and did well, and those that got prideful and arrogant and didn't do so well. But I won't even go into that right now. But there are about 4 areas that I sat down and examined in my life. I sat down and examined my spiritual walk with God. I sat down and had an honest conversation with myself about my finances, what went well this year, what didn't, what I want to work on, what I don't. I looked at my mental and physical, meaning how well am I taking care of myself? Am I still going on my walks? Am I still, taking good care of myself physically and mentally? And then, of course, my knowledge base in terms of how am I growing? What new knowledge am I exposing myself to so that I can be better all around, whether it's at work, at home, in my spiritual life, my physically, what have you. And I really sat down and had a really, really, really open discussion with God about all of these things. And then I just sat in his presence. Now, if I can be very transparent with you all, one of the things that God led me to, don't ask me how or why, but I literally started listening to the shofar. That's shofar. Those are the horns that the priest often blew before they would go into war. If you read anything in the Old Testament, just pick up any story before they went into war. It really doesn't matter, which chapter you're reading. You always are going to know that the sons of Aaron, the tribe of the Levites, the priest always went before them into war, blowing and sounding the trumpets and the horns. And I was asking God, what is that all about? And what he just put in my heart, and some things I learned. First of all, it sends a almost like a signal into the atmosphere, into the spirit world. It confuses the enemy. It confuses Satan. It causes those who oppose you to turn on themselves. Anyway, I'll probably do a whole podcast lesson on that because that's a whole nother subject. So I'm just going to end right there and saying I literally went to YouTube and started looking up the sounds of the shofar. And it's just amazing. And just for those of you who may not know, to my understanding, those are the ram horns, the long horns of rams. And it's totally biblical. This is something that was always done back in the Old Testament, where before there's a war, they would blow the sounds of the trumpets. And it's just majestic. And so I literally was playing that in my hotel room throughout the morning, throughout the night, as I stood looking out of the window, praying before God, taking on some new things he's put in my heart to do. And I cannot explain to you how it literally has changed and pivoted my entire life. Spending time with God, evaluating how am I doing spiritually, financially, physically, and mentally, of course, and how am I growing in my knowledge in terms of what am I learning to be better and do better in this coming year. I just can't explain it. I have a peace in my heart that I don't think I felt for an extremely long time. One of the things God led me to, I went downstairs. They have a really nice restaurant that was attached to the hotel, and I was waiting to be seated, and I sat at a kind of like at a bar while I was waiting on my seat, and I'm sitting there, And I sit next to this person, and I'm sure he's probably going to hear this because he's probably listening to my podcast. But how ironic it is that I'm sitting next to someone who looks nothing like me, absolutely nothing like me. And this man lost his son last year as well. And we got engaged in the most beautiful conversation. And he opened my eyes up so much to help me to see the enjoyment of life, just the enjoyment of life. And how every day is a day that we've never experienced before. And I just can't begin to tell you how God just worked his timing out so well. I'm going to forward a little bit further into this because this is supposed to be a short podcast episode. When I was finally checking out of the hotel days later, I don't know why or how, but I went on YouTube and, there's a couple people I follow or I look up, listen to a sermon or listen to see what they're about. But somehow this minister came up that I'd never really heard of. There was something in me that prompted me to find out who this person was and to find his church. Don't ask me why, but I'll cut to the chase. Bottom line is I found out that they were having a church service on Saturday. And this is about a good hour away from where I was staying. And I kid you not, something in my spirit just led me to go. And I ended up going to this church service. Didn't know anyone there. I'm way on the other side of town, almost an hour away. And all I'll just say is this. It was a very prophetic church. The service was absolutely amazing. I won't go into too much detail, but I'll just say that God led me there for a reason. There was a beautiful, beautiful, amazing woman of God who approached me. And I don't think it's wise to share everything that someone may share with me, but I'll just say it was the first time something like this has ever happened, where someone came to me and gave me a prophetic word from God, and I received it. And it was such a powerful word. There was things that she knew that I don't even know how she knew it. But the wisdom in the word she gave me that, God sees everything I'm going through. And she just said, I just see God all over your life. He is so pleased with you. It's just absolutely amazing how you're walking in obedience and doing what he's telling you to do. And you need to know there's nothing that you can ask of God he wouldn't give you at this point. But she helped me and prayed over me. And it was just the most beautiful, heartfelt prayer. There were some other things that were shared. I won't go into detail, but I see why God led me there. Sometimes, and I bring this up to say, because you may say, well, Z, where is this going? Be led by the Spirit of God. Be led by the Spirit of God. Spend some time and get away with him, please. Even if you say, well, Z, good for you. I can't get away for a couple of days to a hotel. I can't afford that. That's fine. Spend some time and get away with him. I don't care if you got to go lock yourself in your bathroom for a couple of hours and tell people to just leave you alone for a little bit and turn your phone off. However you can do it, even if it's a long walk, see, can you spend some time and get away on a little personal retreat? It's so important at the end of the year to get yourself away on a retreat of some sort. You can't go into the new year with the old mindset. And you have to have that honest evaluation with yourself where you're talking through, how did this year really go for me? Be honest with yourself. Sit and be honest with God. Be honest about your walk with God spiritually. How do I literally rated myself on a scale of 1 to 10. As on a scale of 1 to 10, where do I rate myself if I can be honest with myself on how I'm doing spiritually and how much I've put into my spiritual walk with God? Okay. Now, of course, spiritually, at least for me, I rank pretty high in that because I feel like I'm growing every year, growing more and more and more. But then I looked at some other areas and I wasn't so proud of it. I really wasn't. And it wasn't a moment of being gloom or being down about things, but I looked at, okay, here's where I didn't do well in this category. And here's where I see I need to repent. Okay, here's where I see that I'm going to need to seek out more counsel and advice, or perhaps seek out a king in this particular industry. And you guys know what I mean by kings. I did a message on that a long time ago. You look for people who's been there, done that. You study and evaluate the way they do it. You ask God to give you wisdom and insight, and you put your own spin on it and do it even better. So I had to have an honest conversation with myself, honest conversation with God. I evaluated my life spiritually, financially, physically, as well as in my knowledge base. What am I learning? How many books am I reading? Who am I learning from? Who are some of the experts out here in certain industries that I'm praying that God grows me in? Does that make sense? Then I did something you probably wouldn't expect. I called my entire staff and I said, whoever is able to join me for this, weekend to come up here, to the hotel. I'm going to pay for everyone's room. We'll do a little, gift exchange and spend some time together. But God had revealed some things to me so deep that I needed to let them know here is where we're heading into the new year. And it was the most beautiful experience I think we've ever had as a company, ever. Because ironically, they all came, which was amazing. Some of them even stayed nights over at the hotel. It was absolutely amazing. I'm talking to the point where there's tears even being shed because it was so beautiful what God did and how the revelation he gave me and how I was able to have a talk with my staff and say, hey, I know here's where we've been, but here's where I'm being led for us to go now. This is going to be a major pivot, a major turn. I want to know who's with me and who's not, because I want to pour into the lives of others. I want to walk in the gifts and in the dreams that God has placed in my heart. And I want to know who of my staff members want to go in this new direction with me. We're still keeping everything else up and going. We're going to hire some people to come in and take over this particular area. But I want to know who wants to join me with this new adventure, this new direction that God has taken me. And when I tell you it was beyond powerful, there's some things I'm reserving. I'm just kind of not going into detail right now because I want to really protect my staff and the things that were said. But it was beyond powerful. Beyond powerful. Keep in mind, none of this was planned. Here I was at the office feeling extremely heavy-hearted after posting my last message, my last podcast. And literally within minutes, God just spoke to me and said, you got to get away with me. You got to get away. We got to retreat. And with no warning or of any sort, I told my staff, I called my husband, I told my kids. In fact, my daughter was just getting back from college. She's like, Mom, I won't even see you. I'm like, baby, I'll catch you in a couple of days. You'll be here a couple of weeks anyway. And literally, I had to choose me in that moment and get away and spend time with God and sit and think and be honest with myself. And yes, grieve, of course, but be honest with myself. Evaluate my life. Ask God, what is it you want of me? And I'm so serious when I say I didn't turn on the TV or anything. This was a time alone retreating with him. So let me end this because technically I can't even call this a short podcast episode. I'm at 12 minutes now. I just want to encourage you all. Get on a retreat. Get on a retreat. If you're able to get away for one day, find a little cheap hotel somewhere if you can get away. That's great. I would say at least try to get away for 2 or 3 days. I know it's the holiday season and there's a lot going on, but the most important thing right now is your walk with God. You getting some clarity. I feel like a lot of people are confused because I was walking around in confusion, just not quite sure on what exactly you want me to do. What is this all about? Get on a retreat and get away. And take care of you. Even if it's just a day, my dear sister, my dear brother. Take care of you and have an honest conversation with yourself. How do I rank myself in terms of where I'm at spiritually, and how can that be better this year, dear Lord? How do I rank my finances? How did I handle things? Am I growing in that? How do I rank myself physically and mentally in terms of me taking care of me? Am I even trying to eat better and exercise and work out? And how am I growing in my knowledge base? Am I open to getting a coach or a mentor? Is there anyone I'm learning from? And by the way, my mentorship and accountability program, I'm going to talk to you guys about that later, will be out. God really put it in my heart to go for it. I'll be talking about that in a different episode. But whoever you trust and want to mentor you or what have you, don't have to be me. It could be whoever you want. But how am I growing in that? Is there anyone I'm learning from? Are there any good books I'm reading? Are there any good training programs that I'm in to help me think differently? From spiritually to financially to physically to in every area of your life. Does that make sense? How am I spending time with my family? Am I prioritizing them? Am I prioritizing myself? So I had to have that long talk with myself. I would talk, I would pray, I would eat, I would go to sleep. I would get up, talk, pray, read a lot of scriptures. Same thing. I did that day in and day out. And God just began to pour and reveal in me. And I knew the moment it happened because I woke up at about 5 a.m. Keep in mind, I was up all through the night praying. And the peace that was in my heart when God gave me clarity, if I can be very transparent, he gave me a vision. And he showed me exactly what I would be telling my staff, what I would be telling my team, and what I would be doing. When I get that vision and that peace from God, it's almost like a warmth in my spirit. I can't explain it. But on the inside of my chest, it's like something warm is filling me up. And when I feel that, And I know that is God showing me there's no devil in hell that can stop me. And I kid you not, you guys, I feel such peace in my spirit right now. I feel such an enjoyment of the Lord has finally answered me and directed me. I feel such direction and such clarity. And I want you all to feel that as well. And all I'm saying is get away on a retreat with God. Grab your Bible, grab your keys, apologize to people, say, hey, I'm sorry. I know it's close to the holidays, but I really got to hear from the Lord. I really got to get away and have an honest conversation with myself right now. I got to do this. So anyway, I love you all. You know I do. I don't even know what I'm going to call this podcast episode. I might call it Go on a Retreat. I don't even know. I'll think of something. But I love you all. This is Z with Unlocking Greatness Podcast.